How do we handle our heroes' feet of clay? If you're unfamiliar with that expression, it simply means that all of our heroes, with the exception of Jesus, have flaws. They have warts and wrinkles. They have things in their lives, in their persons, that no doubt they are not proud of. I think of a classic example in the history of the church. I've mentioned many times how much I respect and admire Martin Luther, and how I've decorated my office with various and sundry pictures and images of him. And yet I have to confess that Luther, especially late in his life, said some pretty horrific things that I can't in any way defend. But that's not at all unusual. Again, outside of Jesus, who are you going to pick? David? The adulterous murderer? Are you going to pick Solomon? The one who multiplied wives, and not who built God's temple and also built temples to false gods? It's everywhere you look. And I think there may be a reason for that. I suspect that the reason for that is to remind us that there's only one real hero. That is, when we find ourselves faced with a hero who has disappointed, we should be like, oh, of course. That's how it happens. That's normal. That's par for the course. Any hope that we put in any man or woman apart from Jesus is always going to disappoint. Now, some of those weaknesses are going to be sort of cultural in nature. That is, people often are unaware of their cultural blind spots. And it's very easy for us, living in a different culture with a different set of blind spots, to look down our noses at the blind spots of other eras. And some blind spots, I'll agree, are worse than others. But the reality is, we all have them, and every era has them. I remember reading through the basic writings of St. Augustine. Augustine was, if Luther had a bobblehead in his office, it would have been a bobblehead of Augustine. Augustine was, in many, many ways, the actual theological root of the Reformation, though he lived more than 1,000 years before it. But he was just really a genius, really insightful, really humble. His Confessions is just a wonderful example of a spiritual autobiography that's just open and vulnerable, and we see flaws in him. But there are other places. Oh, and let me add this to the list. Augustine, late in his life, took it upon himself to write out a list of retractions, things that he, on second glance, after some time, looked back at what he had written earlier and said, I think I was wrong here. I think I was wrong there. So this is not a guy who is especially prideful or insistent that he doesn't have his weaknesses, but he has some humdingers of weaknesses. He has some elements of Gnostic thought that were, again, common in the culture, but that crept into his theology. So again, I'm not just here to highlight other people's feet of clay. I have my feet of clay. My father had his feet of clay. His hero, John Gerstner, had his feet of clay. We all do. The question is, what do we do with it? Well, we take it to the cross, just like we do with our own feet of clay. We're not surprised. We're at peace. We don't excuse the sin or the error, but we don't write people off. We don't cancel them. We don't say, oh, well, we found this in the closet of so-and-so, and therefore he's now no longer qualified to be a hero or someone that we look up to or admire. All of that hero worship is always too far, but looking up to and admiring someone has to always carry with it that acknowledgement, that reality of the universal, apart from Christ, feet of clay that we all have.